Yeah, well, let's get a reader on the macro and market themes that he's watching this week. Peter McGuire joins us from XM. Peter, great to see you.
Good morning, Andrew. Good morning, Ingrid.
Yeah, so we're scratching around. So where are we going to go this week? Interesting to see the SPI futures there. We've seen a bit of a disconnect, haven't we, between what's happening in the US and what's happening here?
Absolutely. I think we're probably oversold and a little bit further down, and well, I think we've got a little bit more chance to take on board, positive moves to the upside versus that US market. In a lot of ways, that US market, I think, is probably fully priced for the year. There may be some more upside, but when you're looking at how much it's really, over the last, say, 2 to 3 months, it's just been one-way traffic. So possibly there's a little bit of downdraft there.
So is it that we're playing catch-up here? Because obviously, Aussie shares have outperformed US peers last week. It's quite it's rare.
Well, it doesn't happen very often.
US markets, so
well, exactly, and I think
that trend here to stay.
Well, I think so. Also, our Aussie dollar, it's all been bid up, but we're at 73.08. There's possibly another couple of percent by the end of the month in both the Aussie dollar and, well, maybe by the end of the year, and our equity markets. So that general upswing, I think that we're in a better position to run into that Christmas rally versus US rally and Europe. The coronavirus numbers are just damning, and they're really got to be taken on board as far as what those PMIs are going to look like, and fourth quarter growth across the US and Eurozone. So I think that's that disconnect, and that's how we're feeling.
Okay. Actually, just before the break, we were talking about commodities. Interesting to get your picture there. Let's start with oil, where that's tracking at the moment, because I know that you said OPEC, plus they're meeting
next Monday.
Right, okay, in a week's time, a meeting that you would normally go to.
Yeah, in Vienna. I'd normally cross in. Ingrid would call me, and it'd be 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning. And there's a really interesting point also. The UAE, there was talk last week that they're a little bit fractured from the mothership. And I think it was just a little bit of conjecture that everyone's, as far as compliance, Russia's the number 2 producer. Is everyone staying on board? And there's a little bit of a dislocation, but OPEC is a very interesting animal in itself. And I'm not sure, the long-term horizons. It's been here 60 years. Is it going to be here for another 60? I don't know.
Yeah, because is it making much of a difference at the moment? There's just so much when it comes to the virus playing into oil prices. It seems like OPEC's limited. Well,
it is very much so. And, you're talking about that compliance. Are they going to stick to those numbers? It's a damn hard one. Some of those countries are wanting, $70 and $80 a barrel, and other ones can produce at $5 to $10. So it's so difficult as far as budgets. I'm looking here, Brent's at 45, WTI just on 42.5. They've been both strongly bid up over the last week and a half. So that momentum's been great for traders, and possibly there's a little bit more horsepower there.
Yeah. Okay, let's switch to metals then.
Sure.
What are you liking at the moment? I was mentioning earlier the copper price that just continues to go from strength to strength.
Well, it is. It's on the back of that strong industrial demand out of certainly China, and that global infrastructure boom as far as building. So I think there's no reason why that supercycle, everyone says it's dead and buried. Far from it. It's going to really come into its play, I think, in 21 and 22. It's huge infrastructure, huge concerns about rebuilding the world due to COVID, and get people employed, and the use for base metals is just going to be very, very strong. So I think there's a long way up for those copper and aluminium and lead and zinc. Iron ore's at fairly good prices is going to, I think, do very, very well for Australia.
And gold and silver, precious metals. I mean, there's a lot playing into gold in particular at the moment.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Always that number one theme was what's happening with the vaccine. And we had 198,000 as far as Friday COVID cases in the US. And when you're looking at the lockdown, what that's going to do. So the vaccine was always the number one. That was the only thing to really push it down, and that's now everyone seems to have a vaccine. There's 3 or 4 major players coming out, so there's possibly further softness there.
How are you looking at the economy both here and I guess in the US? Because interesting, this week we've got Black Friday sales, of course, followed by Cyber Monday. So
and Thursday, Thanksgiving, so it's a holiday.
Yeah, indeed. As we lead into Christmas, are you positive, or how's it look here? And bearing in mind, of course, the COVID numbers, which are
catastrophic in the States.
Yeah.
I think it's a disconnect, Andrew. I think that's why our market has performed quite well over the last week, and I think that handbrake as far as US, that will continue, I feel, over the next week. There's still uncertainty. There still seems to be those rumblings along as far as Trump and Giuliani and Powell, so I'm not sure if that gains any traction. But the major point is what's happening as far as lockdowns. And that really puts a handbrake on any economy, as we've seen. But that seems to be the only way forward. 2 weeks ago, we had 87,000 in France as far as COVID numbers. And on the weekend, we had, I think, 22 or 23,000. So it really is an effective mechanism to stop the flow of COVID. And I'm sure that the US will have to fall very much in line with that.
Hard to not talk about Brexit as well. We've got to talk about Brexit. It's a somewhat quiet news week, but Brexit is still trucking along.
Well, those three major points, the policing of the deal, the fisheries, and what's happening as far as the negotiators, they've done their deals. Now it comes down to the politicians. Is Boris and his team going to be able to put something together this month, or do we wait until December? I think there's possibility of a little bit further upside for that British pound, but let's just see what the politicians do.
So you're hopeful then? That's something.
Well, it's been going on for a number of years, Andrew, and we thought that we'd have a deal. Well, I didn't think. I'm only a market commentator. We're looking at trading. We thought that there'd be a deal put together possibly sometime earlier this year. Now we're running to the end, and you know as well as I do, politicians are a very interesting breed. They may run it all the way through to the end of December. I don't know.
Yeah, it probably comes back to that problem is that no one really expected to get it through in the first place.
Exactly.
So there was no forward planning, was there?
100%, and that's the issue at hand, and what impact that has. I'm not sure what Boris, if he wants to really push this hard over the next matter of a week. It's just a wait and see, but I think that pound could be a very interesting trade.
Yeah, okay, we'll keep an eye on it. Peter, great to get your view this morning. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Ingrid.